Hello, beautiful people. I hope that you're doing well. I'm Dr. Leah Hollon, and I'm so excited to be with you here today. I want to talk about post-traumatic growth. What in the heck is that? Well, it kind of is what it sounds like it is, right? So stay tuned, because at the very end, I'll give you a few different things that we find can help to build post-traumatic growth. So again, getting to the meat of the matter, right? So what is it? Well, basically it's where people who have experienced trauma actually kind of rebuild their lives, where they basically have this amazing resilience and they have gone beyond that trauma. Basically, it is no longer defining them in the world. And so we see these positive psychological changes. It could be their mood, it could be the people that they're around, it could be even a new job, it could be all kinds of different things. Even I've had some people where they all of a sudden they have different tastes for food or learning new things like an instrument or dancing. So it can show up as a lot of things. Now I obviously recognize it's hard for some people to get there, but I have seen some of the worst traumas that you could imagine in our practice, and people that have survived 9/11, people who have dealt with 9/11, maybe where they had a loved one who passed away or a colleague. Also folks that have been refugees, individuals who have sustained significant issues around even natural disasters or even abuse within the home, whether it be physical or even sexual abuse. And so all of these individuals have rebuilt themselves, and it's quite beautiful to watch. It's actually really a blessing. It's very humbling, and there's nothing better than seeing someone heal from trauma. So when we think about lineage trauma, right, sometimes we inherit, whether it's sort of that genetic piece, right, or actually a learned behavior of learned helplessness or hopelessness, right? And so if we've only known hardship and our family's known hardship, we might think that that's the only way, whereas we see other families and that seems very strange of how can they have this amount of love and gratitude. And I've kind of shared before that some people have the gratitude bone of a T-Rex, like the hip of a T-Rex or the femur of a T-Rex. And others have sort of the gratitude bone of what would feel like a salmon rib, so very small. And I think early in my life, I thought that gratitude was just something that people had, but it's almost like building a muscle. You can actually build a gratitude bone. So I want to share now some of the things that we recognize around post-traumatic growth. And there's even books out there about it if you're interested. There's guidebooks, there's all kinds of things. But even just getting a book and reading about something that might be helpful, even writing, we find that a lot for individuals who have dealt with trauma, that writing and getting it out of the body is very helpful. You know, one of the things is that when we've been through trauma, we feel like we're always going to stay there. And as I've shared with many people, it doesn't, sometimes it can happen in an instant. And sometimes it can take a little bit longer. So depending on how many layered traumas there are, or if there's a background of ACE. But what we see for folks that have post-traumatic growth is that there's this ongoing belief in abundance, and they also have a lot of gratitude. So one of the things that I recommend people get is in their house is to have like a bowl or maybe a pitcher or some type of container where you can write down your gratitudes each day. We have to build this. We know within neurocircuitry, related to the research that's out there, that we can actually build chemicals of gratitude. We just haven't been told that we can do that. And so the more that we practice this, like going to the gym, it becomes more natural, easier, and we're just constantly making those elevated like chemicals that actually make us feel good. We also see for a lot of folks with post-traumatic growth syndrome is that we see more resilience and self-confidence. They're willing to do things that they haven't done before, and forgiveness, forgiving people who've done maybe horrible things to them. Again, they're not defined by that experience. They know that they're greater than that experience that happened to them. And many times they can look back and say, wow, from 2020, I now understand a little bit more about that. And I recognize that not everyone is in that place, but I'll share for myself. I did have a trauma that happened to me years ago, and I had wonderful people to help me through that. But I couldn't understand why it had happened. And people were like, oh, it's that whole thing, like it happened for a reason. And I was just like, no, I'm not feeling that. I wasn't at that place. And I think enough time passed, enough work that I had done on myself on a deeper level. And also I found that the things that helped me the most were writing and also meditation and movement, and really not being stuck in my old program of, to be honest with you, sort of a victimhood, or feeling as though, like, why did this happen to me? I really felt as though now I kind of understood a little bit more about what I had grown in. At the time, I felt very broken, and it took me quite some time. So I found that I wanted to do more with people again. For a long time, I had kind of shut down, and I didn't really want to be around a lot of people. It was a lot of energy. So I felt like my relationships deepened. So that's what we see also for post-traumatic growth, is that these relationships deepen. There's also more empathy and compassion. And I think that that was a big thing for me. And that's what I see with my patients, is that there's this level of compassion that they have for themselves, sort of almost seeing themselves in a third person of like, wow, I did the best that I could, and I have a better perspective of things. So again, just also a higher sense of purpose. So there's all these beautiful things that we think about related to post-traumatic growth, and there's many ways to get there. And I recognize for some people they're not quite there yet, but I think just knowing that there's the ability to transcend a trauma is a huge thing, and that it's on the horizon. And I think that that gives people a lot of help. So it was wonderful being with you today. Please feel free to reach out if you have any questions, or if there's an actual topic that you're interested in related to our lineage trauma, or even specifically PTSD. Great seeing you guys. Take good care. See you next time.